Hello mga kamatlupet! So, this is Jocelyn Tan and I am going to teach you on how to find the missing sides and the missing angles of a right triangle using the Sohcahtoa Equation. So, now, let's discuss first on how we are going to find the missing sides of a right triangle. So, first, we're going to identify which is the missing sides and which is the known sides. So, here, the 13 here is the hypotenuse because it is the opposite of the right angle. So, remember, the opposite of the right angle is what we call the hypotenuse. Then the x here is the opposite. Is what we call the opposite because it is the opposite of the given angle. So now, after we identify which side is the missing side and the known side, we're going to find which equation are we going to use. So we have opposite here and hypotenuse. So opposite and hypotenuse, we are going to use the sine equation. So we're going to write sine of x, which is the angle. So sine of 45 is equal to the opposite, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is 13. So we have now the equation. But before we solve for the x, we're going to rearrange it first to find the value or the measurement of the x. So it will be x is equal to the to 13 multiplied by the sine of 45. So now, we're going to input it in our calculator. So 13 multiplied by the sine of 45 is equal to 9.19. And the measurement of the x here is 9.19. So in our second example, so same procedure, we're going to identify first which side is the missing and which side is the known. So here the known side is the adjacent because it is next to the given angle. So next is the x, which is the opposite because it is the opposite of the angle. So after we identify, we're going to find which equation are we going to use. So we have adjacent and opposite, adjacent and opposite. So we have the tangent equation. So we're going to write tangent of the angle, so 39 is equal to opposite, which is x, over the adjacent, which is 6. Then we're going to rearrange it to find the value of x. We're going to have 6 multiplied by the tangent of 39. So I'm going to input it here in the calculator. So 6 multiplied by the tangent of 39 is equal to 4.86. 4.86. So the measurement of x here in the second example is 4.86. In the third example, we have the adjacent because it is next to the given angle, and this is the hypotenuse. So x here is the hypotenuse because it is the opposite of the right angle. So we're going to find the equation that we will going to use. So hypotenuse and adjacent, we have cosine equation. So cosine of the angle, so 41 is equal to adjacent, which is 11, over hypotenuse, which is the x. So if you notice, it is different from the first two example because the x here is in below, or it becomes the denominator. So, there are two steps to rearrange it first before we find the value of x. So, first step is we're going to cross-multiply this equation. So, cosine of 41 times x, cosine 41 times x is equal to x times cosine 41. Then, 11 times 1, we consider here that there is 1 under the cosine of 41 because it is multiplying, so it is understood that there is 1 under of this equation. So 11 times 1 is 11. So that's the first step. Now the second step is we're going to rearrange it again to find the value of x. So it will be x is equal to 11. Then we're going to transpose the cosine of 41 here, so it will be division. It will become division. So 11 over the cosine of 41. So now we get the equation. We're going to input it here in our calculator. So we have 11 divided by the cosine of 41 is equal to 14.58. So x here, the measurement of x here is 14.48. So now let's proceed on finding the missing angle of a right triangle. So I have three examples here. So first, again, same procedure. We're going to identify which side is the given. So here, the 6 here is the opposite because it is the opposite of the angle. And here this is the adjacent because it is next to the angle. So if you notice, the angle here is missing. That's why we're going to find it. So we have opposite and adjacent. Opposite and adjacent, we're going to use the tangent equation. So tangent x, which is the angle, and that is unknown, so we're going to write x is equal to the opposite, which is 6, over adjacent, which is 16. So now, after we build the equation, we're going to rearrange it again. In finding angles, we're going to use the inverse or the inverse of the function. So it will become x is equal to tangent inverse multiplied by 16 or 6 rather over 16. So now we have tan inverse multiplied by 6 over 16. So we're going to input. So we're going to press the shift first, shift, then tangent. So now we will be having that tangent inverse. If you see this, let's look at this. We have the tangent inverse of multiplied by the 6 over 16. So we have 20.56 degrees. So the measure of the angle here in our first example is 20.56 degrees. So next, again, we're going to identify. So here, this is the opposite of the right angle. So it is the hypotenuse. And this is next to the angle. So this is the adjacent. So we're going to find the hypotenuse and adjacent. Hypotenuse and adjacent, we're going to use the cosine equation. Cosine, which angle is unknown. So x is equal to adjacent, which is 4 over 12, which is the hypotenuse. So again, we will using the inverse of the function, so it will become x is equal to the inverse of cosine multiplied by 4 over 12. So we're going to input it here in our calculator. So we have shift cosine, so we have the inverse cosine multiplied by 4 over 12 is equal to 70.53 degrees. So the measure of the angle here in the second example is 70.53 degrees. So in the last example, again, we're going to identify which side is the given side. So we have the opposite of the right angle, so we have the hypotenuse. And here, the 3 here is the opposite of the angle, so we have the opposite because it is the opposite of our angle. So we're going to find opposite and hypotenuse. So we're going to use the sine equation. So sine of angle, which is x because it is unknown, is equal to the opposite, which is 3 over 9, which is the hypotenuse. So we're going to rearrange it. We're going to use again the inverse of the function. It will become x is equal to the sine inverse multiplied by 3 over 9. So we're going to input it again in our calculator. So we have shift sine. So we have the sine inverse multiplied by 3 over 9 is equal to x here is measured 19.47 degrees. So x here is equal to 19.47 degrees. So that's all mga kamath lupet. I hope you understand and learn on how to find the missing sides of the right triangle and the missing angles of a right triangle by using the Sohcahtoa equation. Thank you and God bless.